Hi everybody, I am Elizabeth Hines from Our Paleo Family, and if you have been following along, then you know that today is Whole30, day 30. We have made it. At least I hope you have made it. If you have been following along with my daily posts, videos, etc., you will know that in fact I did not make it. I'm so disappointed in myself to say it. You know, if you have read my daily posts, you'll see that I have sort of struggled with this decision to cheat, and I still have such mixed feelings about it. So I'm making spaghetti sauce here. This recipe is on my blog. It's called Paleo Spaghetti Sauce. It's very simple. I don't believe we've done a video before, so I'm going to do it for you today. And I'm making it in my heavy cast iron Dutch oven pot, and I'm making it at 2:30 in the afternoon because I want it to simmer. It's one of those things that it can be ready to eat real quickly, but I think it just gets better and better if it has a chance to simmer for a while. So that is the way I do it if I can. So back to our the sad ending to my Whole30. I'm so proud of myself, and I should be, because I've done really well. I've never done the Whole30 this well before. I thought I've done it pretty well before, and then when I kind of sit back and really look at all the details and again read the fine print of the program rules, I realized, oh, you know, I shouldn't have been having that or whatever. So I really wanted to do it 100% according to their guidelines, and I did that. I really did that for 27.5 days. On day 27, we left for a family trip, and I had planned to cook some and to eat out some because I just knew realistically that I wasn't going to cook the whole time. It was my vacation too, but I had done my research and I had planned so that I thought I would be able to not cheat. And in fact, so what we did was we rode the Virginia Creeper Trail, which is an old rail line that has been converted to a path for cyclists and hikers and walkers, and it's in Virginia. My husband and I did it last year on a weekend away, just the two of us, and it was wonderful. We stayed in this little cabin and we just loved it so much, and we wanted to share it with our kids. So it's fall, which is the best season of the year, and we always go to the mountains just to see the pretty leaf color, and this year we decided, you know, let's take them to do the Virginia Creeper. And so that's what we did for our fall vacation. And you'll see all this if you read my posts, but I cooked Friday night. We had an amazing dinner. We cycled about 25 miles on Friday, and we had this tiny little cabin with this tiny little kitchen, but it was awesome. I'm not complaining at all. It was just, it really was small. So I want a half a pound of sausage. So this was in the freezer, and I had to set it out for a few minutes so I could actually cut through it. And then I'll just put it in the fridge and I'll eat this for breakfast. So that first dinner was great, but then the next day what we did was we rode into town, which was 15 miles, and we ate lunch, and then we rode back, and we were going to go out to dinner because 30 miles is a lot, right? And I didn't want to cook again, so I did not bring any more food. So we went to lunch at a barbecue place, same place my husband and I ate last year. And I knew, you know, I could not have any sauce, and I wouldn't be putting on a lot of extra sugar, so I could really avoid the sugar. They probably had a little sugar in some of their spice rubs, but I can't do anything about that. So I just figured that's going to be all right if there was a little sugar that they rubbed on the meat before they cooked it. I figure that's probably like, you know, you look at a package of bacon and it says there's sugar in the ingredient list, but yet when you look at the nutrition facts, there's no sugar. So there's a little sugar in the curing process, but none of that sugar actually remains in the finished product. So I figure we're working with the same thing. So I thought that's all right. But they have these really amazing sauces. They have this peach chipotle sauce and one they called razzleberry, which I remember last year we loved it so much I tried to make it, and mine was not as good. So I did have a little bit of barbecue sauce, which, I mean, I know it has sugar, and I know it did. I did not have very much, but still I had some. And that is against the rules. But then afterward, my family went and got ice cream, and this little town had a lot of antique stores. So while they ate their ice cream, I perused one of the antique stores next door and was fine with it. I was really fine with it. This dessert shop where they bought the ice cream had some amazing, decadent looking desserts. These little individual pies and all sorts of different cheesecakes and cookies, and it all looked great. I mean, none of it was gluten-free. I couldn't eat any of it anyway. I really was okay with it. But then came dinner, and there were two places. So the Virginia Creeper is near Bristol, which I thought Bristol was Tennessee, but Bristol is actually on the border. So there's Bristol, Virginia, and there's Bristol, Tennessee. So this restaurant called Cootie Brown's, well, there were two restaurants. I found them on Find Me G-Free, which if you don't have the Find Me G-Free, I think it's Find Me G-Free, Find Me Gluten-Free app, get that. It's wonderful for when you travel. And I always try to leave reviews because I feel like there aren't a lot of reviews, and that is how you can pick, you know, whether the place is really going to be safe or not. There were two places that seemed really good, had lots of options, and the one I wanted to go to, I'm just defending myself a little bit. I'm just getting my onions a little brown, a little soft. They're not quite there, and then I'm going to add my meat. The place I wanted to go, I could have gotten grilled meat, you know, bunless burger, that kind of thing. It would have been not super fancy or exciting, but it would have been fine and hearty. But then I started reading the information about this other place called Cootie Brown's. This is really not smart. And I said the magic words, gluten-free pizza. And the kids who had ridden 30 miles on their bikes that day and were completely vegged out on the sofa watching TV, totally perked up. Ooh, let's go there. They wanted gluten-free pizza. So I was so proud of them. They had done such an amazing job on this bike ride that I just didn't even feel like arguing. I was like, okay, you have earned it. We'll go get you some gluten-free pizza. And they also had grilled meats, and they had more sort of Southwestern type foods, but also just, you know, burgers, and they had gluten-free buns. And I was like, you know, I don't need a gluten-free bun. Anyway, I thought this will be fine. Well, they got their pizza, bacon, pepperoni, and sausage, and it looked and smelled like the best gluten-free pizza I've ever seen in my life. And it was just over at that point. It was over. And I had a bite, and it was so good. So then I had a little piece on my own. It was one of those kind of pizzas that cut the pieces in squares. So, you know, one piece was just a few bites. I had two pieces. Actually, I had three because I had one at the corners. So my parents had a restaurant when I was young, and they had pizza, and they cut it into squares, and I remember always wanting that little corner piece. I know, it's just more excuses, right? But it was so good. But then, this place, Cootie Brown's, is apparently famous for their key lime pie. They have this whole dessert case right there where you have to walk past when you come in, and you pay at the counter, and their big thing was they now have gluten-free key lime pie. And I'm going to wash my hands. So I'm just going to go through the process of breaking down my ground beef and my sausage, which my sausage is still a little frozen in the middle. So stirring it around, cooking this down. My heat is on medium. I'm about to turn it up to about medium-high. So, you know, I don't know about you, but for me, something like this Whole30 is very, there's a lot of psychology to it. And you have to, I think in order to be successful, you have to know how you operate, what your own personal psychology is. So, like for me, I know I'm like an all or nothing person. So it's a lot easier for me to go completely cold turkey than to say wean off of something. So I can't say, you know, I've been having too much dairy, I'm just going to cut back. I'm not going to have cheese, but I'm still going to put cream in my coffee. I can't do that. I just have to say none. So a Whole30 is actually, it works really well for my mentality. But the flip side of that is with, for example, the cheating. When it's over, it's over. And so I ate the pizza and I loved it. It was delicious. I don't know whether I'm sorry I ate it or not, but it was really good. And I couldn't eat it leftover because of my histamine intolerance. It's not like I could have waited 3 days and eaten it later. I couldn't have eaten it. So anyway, but then they ordered the gluten-free key lime pie. And I know if I had said to my husband, please don't order it, I'll be too tempted, please don't order it, he wouldn't have. He would have really been respectful of that. But deep down, I wanted him to order it because I wanted to try it. It looked really different. It had a couple layers to the filling, and it looked like no key lime pie I'd ever had before. And I wanted to try it. So we got it, and I tried it. Not at first, but he said, oh, you need to try this. And so, of course, the obedient wife that I am, I tried it. So I'm continuing to just work down my meat, and at this point there's enough in there that I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic. I didn't want to add my garlic too early because it would burn, and my recipe calls for 4 to 5 cloves. So we'll just see how big they are, and that will help me decide how many I'm going to put in. It's 2 are stuck together. So I ate a couple pieces of pizza, probably was the equivalent of not even one of like a Domino's slice of pizza. So it wasn't that much pizza actually, but it was some, and I ate it. And then I ate the 3 little bites, and really it was 3, and it was little bites of that pie. And then the next day dawned, which would have been my day 29, right? Sunday. And I did great for breakfast and lunch, and then dinner. I was really hungry. So we stopped on our way home at this really neat burger place that has gluten-free buns. They're really yummy. They're really good about allergies. And they also have a gluten-free fryer, so I knew I could get French fries. And it turns out they also have tater tots. I mean, when was the last time you had tater tots, right? So again, it was over. But you know what, as I thought about it, like these past couple days I think represented a pretty good balance. You know, not a balance for every day, because every day I'm not going to eat 2 good paleo / Whole30 meals and 1 totally off the rails meal. That's not normal. But it would be normal for me to eat, I mean, 100% paleo / Whole30, keto, you know, falls into all of those categories. I can eat that way all the time when I'm at home, and I'm totally fine with it. When I'm on vacation, I'm gonna make some compromises to that eating style, because I like food and I like to try different foods that are not something I eat regularly, sort of local type things, local places, little dives. I don't think I'll ever eat gluten again intentionally. I've heard that, you know, people say they go to Europe and they eat the bread and the pasta in Italy and in France, and you know, they have even celiac and it doesn't bother them. So I don't know, if I ever get to Europe someday, I might try some bread or some pasta, but this side of the Atlantic, I don't think I ever will. Certainly not intentionally. But if I'm on a 3-day weekend, maybe I splurge a little bit. I think that's great. I think that's balanced, and I think that's healthy. And I think the Whole30 people would say the same thing. You know, that's why they'll even say, you know, we don't want you to do a whole 365. You know, some people will do a whole 60 or even a whole 90. Like, they feel so good after the 30 days, they just keep going. But they don't want you to do a whole 365. So I'm on day 30. For breakfast, I had a totally Whole30 breakfast. You'll see all this written up in my post. My lunch as well. Supper, we're having spaghetti sauce and my spaghetti squash cakes, which I just sort of made on the fly to go with one of my other meals, and it was really good. And so I decided that that would be our party meal. So I cooked my spaghetti squash in the Instant Pot, and I wanted to show you this. I'm going to make the squash cakes later, really at dinner time. But I did just get my I just got my squash out of the Instant Pot, and it's kind of hard to handle. So I have instructions for Instant Pot spaghetti squash on my website. It's a recipe. It's very simple. It's the squash and a half a cup of water. I had an average sized spaghetti squash, and it cooked down to this. And in my recipe I say cook it for 10 minutes whole, release the pressure, take it out, cut it in half, scoop out all of the strings and the seeds and stuff, put it back in 5 more minutes, and you need to immediately take it out, because if not, so that you have these nice little spaghetti like strands. And I have overcooked it before where I just let the pressure come down naturally. Because there's not a lot of volume in there, the pressure will come down pretty quickly. But even at that, it was just total mush. So you want to take the pressure out, manually release the pressure, and then take it out right away. And I put mine in this strainer just because, you know, there's a lot of water. There's like half a cup of water in there. I haven't pressed on it or anything, and all that water has come out. I pressed on it a little bit, even more will. I don't care about it sort of mushing together because I'm going to make these little cakes out of it. So I just apply some light pressure, squeeze a little more water out. But then I'll put that in the fridge and we'll make our cakes later. So for now, I'm just getting my sauce ready. My sausage is just about defrosted all the way through. And I hope you've learned, if you've watched any of these other recipes, that we're not going to stop as soon as the meat is no longer pink, right? We're going to keep going, and we're going to let it actually brown. I can't even really smell my garlic yet, so I need my garlic to really cook and start to get fragrant. And then I'm going to add my tomato paste. We're going to let that brown as well. Yes, we are. And then in will go my liquid ingredients, and then I'll put my herbs in at the very end. So a lot of people say, I don't know a lot, some food expert people would say to always use fresh herbs at the very end of your cooking so that they retain their flavor. But I don't have any problem putting fresh herbs in at the beginning of my cooking time. You know, I'm not putting them in now. I'll put them in as my last ingredient, but then they'll simmer for 3 hours till dinner with my sauce. It's like garlic skins falling out of the sky. And they'll be fine. They'll still be nice and potent. And I have here oregano and basil. I just had a big handful. My recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of each fresh, or 1 tablespoon dried. And I still had fresh outside, so that's what I used. And I just picked the leaves off, washed them really well, dried them on a paper towel, and then chopped them up as finely as I could. And you see I have quite a big pile there, so my tablespoon measure is if I were to press the herbs down in the measuring spoon. So I've used all sorts of different types of tomatoes when I make my spaghetti sauce. Ooh, that's not cooking well. And frankly, I have some canned outside in my garage that I canned from last summer. That would be really good. However, I wanted to make this exactly according to the recipe as it's written. So this is the 28-ounce can of tomatoes that I talk about in my recipe. And I happen to like this Muir-Glen organic crushed tomatoes, and it's with basil. They don't have one that's without basil, so you got to get it with the basil if you choose this brand. But it's a really mild, like I can't even really tell there's basil in there, so don't let that deter you at all. And also don't think that you don't then have to add fresh basil, because there's, like I said, there's not enough of it in there, in my opinion, to even taste it. So I'm already in the process of writing up a Whole30 recap, just kind of summarizing my feelings, the highs, the lows, the positives, the negatives. But I'll tell you, I think everybody should do it. If you just happened upon this recipe because you were looking at Paleo Spaghetti Sauce, you didn't know I was going to be talking about doing a Whole30, you didn't even know what that is, I would say look it up, and you should do it. I would like everybody I know to do one, because we all have some We all have some habits, I think, that we need to break. We all have some ailments that I think maybe we don't even realize we have. And honestly, so one of my big ailments is my feet, this arthritis pain in my feet, and it's pretty severe, and it affects my my quality of life a good bit, honestly. So it's significant, and as significant as it is, it was about 2/3 of the way through the Whole30 before I even stopped to think and realized it's better. You know, the pain in my feet is better. I could be on my feet all morning teaching and not feel like I needed to immediately put ice on my feet. Tomorrow we were supposed to go to the zoo with friends, but the weather has just turned yucky and we're not going to be able to go. But I was so looking forward to going and seeing how would a day, like a full day where I'm on my feet walking, standing for 8 hours, how would I feel compared to pre-Whole30? But we'll do it another time. And I'll tell you, it was such a good experience that I'm going to do it again. So we just got back from our trip last night. I just got back from the grocery store and I bought a gluten-free cake at Whole Foods. They have these really yummy little cakes. They're about like this. And I bought one called, I think, salted caramel. It's chocolate cake with, I think, a vanilla icing and some kind of salted caramel sauce. Gluten-free, sugar-full. It's not grain-free. It's not dairy-free. And I'm going to eat as much of it as I want tomorrow. I bought some nice cheddar cheese. I'm going to make some pimento cheese. I'm going to put cream in my coffee, and I know that that's bad. That's not Whole30. You're supposed to introduce one thing at a time. But let me tell you what I think about that. So I eat mostly paleo most of the time. So I'm not someone who's going from a standard American diet, basically, to paleo. So I took a whole bunch of stuff out of my diet. I took a little bit of stuff out of my diet. And so the things that I really eliminated completely that were not a part of Whole30 were dairy. I did eat some dairy, so that was totally out. And I ate a little bit of sugar, not a lot of sugar, but a little. Mostly paleo sugars like maple syrup. But I did use stevia pretty liberally. And I would occasionally eat white rice, occasionally a little bit of corn. So I would say the foods that I took out of my diet that had an impact on my Whole30 were the dairy and the sugar. So it's not like if I go and eat pizza and ice cream and cookies and candy tomorrow, I'm not going to have, and then I feel bad. I will probably feel bad, honestly. I won't have any idea which one of those things did it to me. Do you know what I mean? We might have gluten-free pizza for dinner, but it'll be gluten-free, you know, so it's not like gluten will be a questionable factor. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But I'm going right back to it. You know, I spent these 30 days either recooking some favorite recipes that maybe we hadn't had for a while or that I didn't think about as being Whole30, or creating new recipes like the jambalaya, which was so good. We're having it in a couple days. We're having it again. The food was so yummy that I didn't feel like I missed out, really, and I'm happy to embark on another 30 days. Really, 2 days off and then right back on. So I'm letting my meat brown. It's getting there. I've cranked up to medium-high. It'll be just a couple minutes, so I'm going to put my spaghetti squash away while that happens, and then we'll be able to move on. I'm going to need a teaspoon of my fish sauce and a tablespoon of the coconut aminos. Okay, here comes the brownie. That's what I wanted. Alright, so I'm going to scoot the meat to the side. I'm going to squirt my tomato paste in the center, 3 tablespoons. So again, I'm not measuring. I just know about what a tablespoon is. I'm going to squirt it in there. If I end up with a little more or a little less, that is A-okay. This is the kind of cooking I like because cooking, you know, I've said it before, baking, you really do need to be precise. Actually, if you weigh your ingredients instead of measuring them, you'll be even more precise with your baking. But cooking, you don't have to be precise like that. You can change up the recipe to suit your needs. Alright, so I let that brown there for just a second. You saw how long that was. Now I'm going to stir the tomato paste in. Let that continue to cook and brown for just a minute while I get everything else ready. Now I only added salt with my onion. I did not add more, so I know I'm going to need a little more salt, and I'm going to need a little more pepper for all that beef. The sausage was salty. My pepper. Here's my broth. I made a big batch of broth last week in the Instant Pot. And I have all these little cubes in the freezer, which I keep thinking that there's a measurement on here. This is I think it's a cup and a half. I think it's a 10 ounce container, but I'm not completely sure. Sorry. The recipe calls for a cup, and if it's more than that, it's fine. It's going to cook for a long time, and it'll reduce down, and it'll just add more richness and flavor. Okay, so because this is still frozen, I want to add some liquid in here right away to deglaze my pan, so I'm going to add my tomatoes. And I always run some water in the can. So I just slowly run the water around the edge. And that rinses out my can, adds a little bit of water. That's about 1/3 cup of water. So it's not going to water down my sauce or anything. But that way I'm not wasting all the tomatoes that were stuck on the edge. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and... Woo! Oh gosh, that was terrible. Okay, so I added in my broth. That will melt really quickly. And all this liquid will help deglaze my pan. And now I just need to add my tablespoon of coconut aminos. I need to turn my heat down. I got some big bubbles happening there. I'm about to explode out on me. And then a teaspoon of fish sauce. Again, this is the really stinky one, but it has really good flavor. So don't leave it out. You can find that at regular old grocery stores. It's not really a specialty ingredient. And my herbs. And then I'm all done. And all I'm going to do is set my lid on this kind of askew. I'll show you what I mean. So we'll get this stirred in. That broth will defrost really quickly. And I won't taste this right away because the flavor changes. The flavors really deepen and some of the liquid will evaporate. So if I taste it now and think it really needs salt, it may get saltier as the flavors concentrate. So I'm just going to leave it and let it simmer away for a while. So I have my temperature down on low. And I'm just going to set my lid on like that. So I get some evaporation. I want some evaporation because I want the flavors to really concentrate. And we'll just let it go for about 3 hours. So we'll see you back when it's time to make our spaghetti squash cakes. Hi there, everybody. So this is part 2 of Whole30, day 30. And my spaghetti squash is simmering away on the stove and has been for about 2.5 hours. And so I'm going to get started on my spaghetti squash cake. And my recipe, I wrote it up as a small batch recipe. So serving for 1 to 2 people. And I have a whole spaghetti squash tonight. Then I had just a little bit of squash left over from another recipe. So I'm going to make some adjustments and I'll show you how I do that. And instead of cooking it in a little dish, I'm going to cook it in my 10-inch cast iron skillet. I've poured about a tablespoon of avocado oil in here. I've just turned my oven on to 400 and I'm going to put my skillet in the oven to heat up with the oven. Okay, so that I will know how to scale my recipe. First of all, so we're kind of frugal and we reuse our plastic bags. And so when I poured that squash into the bag, I had a feeling it was going to leak. So I, the last second, put it in the bowl, which is fine because this is a bowl I want to use to mix up my my mixture. I'm just occasionally I will accidentally leave a seed in there, which would not be the end of the world, but I want to pull that out. So my recipe is written for a 1/2 cup of spaghetti squash. So I have a 1/2 cup measure, So I really need 2 bowls, but I'll just use that. So I'm just going to measure how much squash I have, and I'm going to use all of this. So I'm pressing it down in. I've got my little piles, because for each half cup of squash, I need 1 egg, approximately. If I end up with a little bit over or a little bit under, it's not the end of the world. But this happened to work out, so I have just about exactly, or there's a little piece of like that fibrous part that's in the center of the squash, so I'm going to pull that out. So I have 4 my half cup measures, which, let's do our math, that gives us 2 cups. So I have 2 cups of squash, so I'm going to need to quadruple my recipe. So I think I've told you before, my kids do not like spaghetti squash. And I get it, you know, I think we try to pass it off as pasta, and it is definitely not pasta. I mean, the texture isn't the same, the taste isn't the same, and it's kind of sweet, which I would think would appeal to most children, but it apparently does not appeal to my children. But the one way I can get them to eat it, I mean, they're not begging for it, but they'll eat it, is when I turn it into something like this. So my overnight egg casserole recipe that's in my book, it's our Christmas morning recipe, that along with the cinnamon roll, coffee cake. They'll eat it like that because, one, it has a ton of flavor. It's like a homemade sausage, lots and lots of flavor. But the eggs serve to change the texture, basically, and they will enjoy it more. And frankly, I enjoy it more. So we're making it really a loose texture here with our eggs mixed in with our squash. So I would say any average size spaghetti squash, you could add 4 eggs. And then it was 1/4 of a cup of almond flour, so I need a full cup of almond flour. And actually I'm going to add my spices before I add my flour because it'll be easier to get them all incorporated. So my original recipe called for just a pinch of onion powder and a pinch of garlic powder. And so I'm going to use 1/4 of a teaspoon of each one. And in fact, I'm out of garlic powder. I have garlic salt, so I will cut back on the salt otherwise. However, it's a lot of squash, it's a lot of egg, so it needs some salt. So I'm going to use just a scant 1/4 of a teaspoon. Scant means not quite full. So you might see a recipe that calls for a heaping teaspoon. That means really have it heaped up over. And scant means not quite full. So I had a scant 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. A lot of pepper. And I'm going to mix all that in. And throw almond flour all over. So just like all the other days for my Whole30, I'm really looking forward to this dinner. And I'm telling you, it's been so tempting all day to just go ahead and eat whatever. But I knew I had this good dinner coming. I was going to enjoy it. And so it's gotten me through. And tomorrow, like I said before, I get to eat whatever I want. I'm super excited about that. I'm excited to step on the scale too and see if that has moved at all in the right direction. We shall see. So I just blend all this in. I don't want any lumps of almond flour. That's why I'm using my fork to really get it all mixed up well. And then I'll use a rubber spatula. Just scrape down the sides, make sure everything is mixed in well. So that's it, really simple seasoning. Certainly if you wanted to use some fresh herbs, it'd be perfectly fine. You know, the little bit of garlic and the little bit of onion certainly pairs well with an Italian meal, but it's not so strong of a flavor that I couldn't have it with a piece of sausage in the morning, something like that. This would be pretty versatile. You could certainly, this would be really good with the jambalaya that I made around day 13, 14, something like that. Make sure I can smell that onion. I got enough in there. Okay, and I'm going to pull out my skillet carefully. I got a little almond flour on the counter, so just mix that in. So I'm just going to tilt this around get that oil totally covering. My oven is almost up to temperature. So I just got it all the way around. I'm going to really tilt it and try to get it a little bit up the sides, about as far as I think my mixture will reach. I got this suede pot holder, I guess, handle cover with a skillet I bought years ago, and I burned it a little bit right there. But whenever I use my cast iron or any skillet that I'm putting in the oven, I try to put this on. Otherwise, I will forget that it's been in the oven, and I will invariably grab it and burn my hand. So I try to, it's not, I mean, it's enough for me to hold it for a few seconds, but you know, the iron gets very hot, so I double up, but just leaving it there serves as a visual reminder that it's been in the oven, it's hot, don't touch the skillet. Okay, so all this mixture goes in. This is going to be such a yummy base for our sauce. And I'll show you the sauce, how it's really transformed with its simmering time. Just spread that out. And my little cake that was very thin baked for just a little over 10 minutes. This is going to take longer, so I'm going to get it in the oven and I'll let you know in the end how long it took. I'm guessing about 25 minutes. Okay, I just want to show you how much my sauce has reduced. So we've got the overhead shot, but it's reduced by about half the volume, and it's really thick. Not really thick, but it's the perfect thickness for spaghetti sauce, in my opinion. I don't really want it to get any thicker than this. I don't want more of the liquid to evaporate. So whereas I had my heat about on between medium low and low on my, not my biggest burner, so it was still simmering. I mean, I could hear it bubbling away, and I could see little bubbles all over, but it wasn't, like if I took the lid off, it wasn't going to pop all over the place. So it's just a low simmer, and it's turned out perfectly, but I'm not ready for dinner yet. So I'm going to put this on the stove. I'm going to turn my heat all the way to low, and I'm going to put the lid all the way on. So whereas before I had it offset like this, I'm just going to put the lid all the way on. And then my sauce will just sit just like this for 20 minutes until we're ready for dinner. Hi everybody, I'm back. We have our spaghetti squash cake out of the oven. It took 22 minutes to bake, which frankly was faster than I was expecting because this is significantly thicker than the little one I made with just a half a cup of squash. And I can tell you, it smells amazing. To me, it smells almost like bread. So I am really looking forward to having my spaghetti on top of this. And I'm going to put a few pieces on here just because I needed some good pictures of this for the vlog. I want to show you how I tested it to see if it was done. I simply took my knife and made a little slit in the middle, and it should be dry. No liquid should ooze out. And that's exactly what happened, and so I know that it's done. It's nice and brown around the edges, which is just what I want. And I'm going to cut this into wedges because I think that will look pretty. I'm going to use my knife to run around the edge. Actually, that's not working super well. So I'm going to use this little, this very thin, this would be like for spreading frosting typically, but I use it for a lot of other things. So from the craft store in the baking section. So I'm just run my little thin spatula around the edge. It's sticking a little bit. I should have probably greased my pan a little bit better. And I'm glad I put this suede little handle cover on because I just put my hand right on there. Did you notice? Okay, so it looks almost cheesy. Not at all cheesy. That one didn't come out as pretty, so I don't want that one in my photos. I'm going to be a little bit particular here and try to have really nice looking wedges for my photos. But I want to show you the edges are nice and brown. It has that sort of crispy effect that I wanted. Again, just like I've talked about this whole time, that browning is caramelization, and that's flavor, and that's what we want. those guys on there. I'm going to ladle a little sauce in this bowl again, just to make it look nice. But absolutely, if you were having a party, you could make the sauce and you could make the spaghetti squash cakes, and you could cut them into tiny little rounds. Maybe bake them in a bigger pan so they were thinner, and serve those like a little appetizer. That would be delicious. It'd be like cheese sticks. So here we have a nice serving for me to photograph, and then I'm going to serve some up for us to eat for dinner. So I'll give my husband a nice big portion here. A couple triangles of our squash cake. Scoot that to the side. It has a great texture. This is really a yummy way to eat the spaghetti squash. And I hope my kids love it. And just ladle a big portion of the sauce right over top, just like you would do pasta. And I should note, I forgot to tell you when I was making the sauce, this spaghetti sauce recipe includes a little bit of honey, getting some steam, honey or maple syrup in the recipe, and obviously for Whole30 we leave that out, and it's perfectly fine without it. If you're like me and you're used to having a pasta sauce that's a little sweeter, that's why I put that in the recipe. It just gives that little boost of sweetness, and it's delicious. But if you're doing a Whole30, absolutely leave it out. It is no problem. It's just as delicious without. So here's our serving. It's almost like having garlic bread and pasta at the same time with your spaghetti sauce. And to go with our dinner, we're just having a big bowl of salad greens and one of my dressings, that avocado dressing that I told you came from the Whole30 Daily, which is their like a subscription service that you can buy. Well, it's not a subscription. I guess it is a subscription. You pay just one time. It's $15, and they send you an email every day of your Whole30, including like a pre-day, the day before, and then also a day 31. There's a lot of great information. It is worth the $15. And that avocado dressing, it was listed in one of those emails, or my ranch dressing, which is available in my book, or you could watch one of the very early videos. I think it was day 2 maybe. I made that ranch dressing, so you could watch me make it. So that's it, Whole30 day 30. I hope that it has been successful for you. I hope you've had a good time. I hope you're feeling great and have enjoyed the food. And again, if you just happen to find this recipe and you don't know what I'm talking about with the Whole30, you can click on the link to the website and go back and read all about that. I am a firm believer in doing a reset diet like this, and I think you'll feel great if you do it. So thank you for following along, for those of you that have been with me for 30 days. It's been a lot of work, honestly, but it's been great, and I am so glad I did it for you. I'm glad I did it for me. I'm glad I did it for my kids. I don't even have to tell them how to cook. So, hey, or watch this video. So I hope you have had a great time, and I will still be making more videos, and I will just see you next time. Thanks, everybody.